Global financial markets continue to be rattled by the economic crisis in Turkey. The country's currency has plunged to a record low against the US dollar, prompting the Turkish central bank to take measures. Jeannie Lee is here with the details. So what is the latest in Turkey?
Well, Reshmi, the central bank did step in to try to make this from becoming a worse crisis because it does have the potential to escalate pretty quickly. So it's doing what it can to make sure the banks have as much cash as they need on hand. Because whenever there's a currency crisis, and you'll remember from previous ones, the natural tendency for people is to run to the bank and try to pull out all their money from their bank accounts, and that can be a problem if the bank runs out of cash. That incites a panic. And so let's go over what's happened to shake the confidence in the lira so much. You take some runaway inflation, you sprinkle in concerns about the Turkish president's tight grip on economic policy, and you throw in a diplomatic fight with Donald Trump. And this is where the fight comes in. Turkey is holding an American pastor on espionage charges, among other charges. And the U.S. has retaliated by doubling metals tariffs. Doubling. So imagine that. In some cases, we're talking about a 50% tariff. That's punishing for the Turkish economy. But neither leader will back down, and this stirs up a lot of uncertainty because here are two NATO allies going at it, and that is an unprecedented type of situation. So the result is the lira, which had already fallen a lot this year, sank to a record low, as much as 12% overnight. That's like our dollar losing 10 cents overnight. It's that drastic. And so that brings in a whole new set of problems. What could help the currency? Well, higher interest rates. But if you raise rates, well, first of all, President Erdogan isn't for this at all. He's adamantly against hikes. And the lira's plunge could then prompt a run on the banks. And if the banks do run out of cash, we talked about what that problem would be. And just generally, the bank stocks have been taking a hit, and overall uncertainty again, because here are two leaders who really should be working together, you would think, because they are members of NATO, but they're not.
Why is it so difficult for them to sort this out?
Right. Well, you know, these problems tend to be all tangled up in a whole big, complicated ball. You do one thing, another problem gets worse. You do nothing, everything gets worse. So, for example, rate hikes, they could hurt, obviously, consumers and businesses because suddenly you would have to have way higher rates in order to bring the lira back up. But if the lira isn't helped, it'll plunge some more, and whenever it gets dumped, it tends to be sort of a snowball effect, and then it really, really falls, in which case inflation could spike even more than it has. It's on track in Turkey to rise to 21% next month. So can you imagine that? These numbers, we can't even fathom because, you know, we don't have this type of situation at all, but this is just out of this world type of inflation.
It sounds extremely painful.